Hey everyone, welcome back to Raising the Nuts. Today is the fourth and final episode of this series, going through some hands played on a Stones live stream by a vlog watcher named Paul. If you haven't seen the other ones, check the playlist up here and watch those. I know this isn't for everyone, and it's lacking some entertainment value for some people. It's more of a strategy type thing. If you want some entertainment videos, we have a lot of those on this channel. You can check those out as well. Just one quick thing tonight, which I guess this video will come out tomorrow morning, so you actually won't see this live, but every Thursday from now on, I'm going to do a live stream at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Myself and my wife Jody just going to talk about, we can talk about anything. Going to talk about poker hands, going to talk about nutrition, mental health, all these different things, just a little check-in. And I hope you guys check it out and you enjoy it. If it's not up your alley, that's cool too. I know the last two hands that we did here the last 2 days were not these big, they're not like sexy hands. They're very small spots, but these are the spots where if you do want to get better at poker, these are the things that you should be focusing on. A lot of times people who talk to me and they want to get better at poker, they really focus on the big coolers, they focus on these hands that are mostly out of their control, and they neglect these small spots, these small pots that are really they're really integral in becoming a winning player. So those are the type of spots that I like to go over, and hopefully you guys get something out of them. I do want to start this off before we get into the hand of the day today. I want to go back to the hand that we did the other day where Paul had King Queen and Marley had 10-9 of hearts, because I thought there's a few things that we can get that are pretty interesting that we didn't touch on, obviously, because this is unfiltered and we just go straight through. So I just wanted to go over those real quick before we get into the hand today. So for this hand, I got this handheld microphone again here today. We're working on the microphones in progress, but so I want to talk about this flop spot here a little bit more because of a comment that Adam Pasquale made here in the section from this video, asking if we got the most value from Marley's hand by checking back the flop with King Queen. And on first glance, obviously it makes sense. Like, we did get the most value because Marley had 10-9 and she made it a pair on the turn. But obviously when we think about these things, we want to think about our entire range. We want to think about how that's going to do against all the hands that she has, not just 10-9 in this particular spot. But more importantly, with actually 10-9, I think this is something that a lot of people don't get here. So on this Queen 6-4 board, when the player in position, which is Paul, this favors the player in position. Now, just to remind real quick, pre-flop, Paul had opened in the hijack, I believe, and Marley called it the big blind. There was a straddle in the pot. So that's just the position, just to let you know. But Paul has a huge advantage here in position. And so he's really incentivized to bet a really small amount with a lot of hands here. Now, to counteract that, Marley, if you consider Marley to be a good player, you can make all your own judgments on that or not, but if you consider someone to be able to make moves and to properly defend, now, when they're facing a small bet size on this board texture, they're going to have to pick a lot of hands to defend to counteract the fact that you can bet all of those hands also. So if Marley only continued with like a queen or better, then she'd obviously be in a lot of trouble. She's also in a lot of trouble if she only continues with pairs and things like that. So a hand like her actual hand here, which is 10-9 of hearts, which most people may think, oh, well, I made more money because I checked and I allowed her to catch up. Well, her hand actually should be continuing a lot of the time versus small bets. And that could be with a raise, or it could be with a call, it could be with a bunch of different, with those two options, basically. The reason is, her opponent's going to be betting this flop with a high frequency. She has two backdoor straight draws. She has backdoor flush draw. She has two overcards to the middle pair. She has overcards to pocket pairs like 7s, 5s, and 8s. So there's a lot of ways she can continue with this hand. So and with a lot of the hands in her range, because of the fact that we're going to be betting such a wide range. So I just wanted to kind of hit on that a little bit more. And we can think about the way that we get better at poker. The way you get better at poker is to think about how to construct your range, to come up with the combination of hands that you want to bet on each street and how you're going to game plan for things. So there's going to be certain scenarios where we bet here on the flop and then we check turn and bet river. And then there's going to be scenarios where we bet flop, bet turn, bet river. All these different combinations of things. And you want to have in your mind, you want to practice every single hand that's played out on the table. You want to take the time to practice and think about what hands you should be doing, what you should be doing with which hands in each spot. So that's my little tangent here. We'll get into today's hand now. Just wanted to go into that a little bit. Thank you guys for the feedback, and it makes me want to study these things more and throw out these thoughts that I have here to you guys. So I'm going to get to the next hand here in 1 second. Okay, so now for today's hand. Apologies if the audio is not as crisp in that first part of the video here. I realized that I didn't have my microphone turned on when I recorded that. I don't really feel like going back and recording the whole thing again, so we're just going to stick with this for now. So into today's hand, folds to Paul here on the button. If you don't watch the other videos, we're playing like a $1 on the button, $2, $3 looks like game. The blind structure is kind of weird in this game. Not really sure, again, what's going on for sure. And this is my unfiltered, I have only seen this hand one time analysis. So here we go. So folds to Paul here on the button with ace-3 offsuit. And when we're trying to decide whether or not to play this hand, first of all, we want to recognize that there is extra money out there in the pot as opposed to a traditional two blind game. Secondly, we want to think about our opponents in the blinds. Now, I think it's a pretty widely held assumption that any ace on the button is good for a raise and that it's profitable. I think there's actually been some solver work done that shows that some of the ace-x combinations can be folds in certain rake environments. That's more of like an online type thing. And I think that generally you can just probably open up all of your ace-x hands here, especially when there's an extra $1 on the button or whatever it is. But it is worth noting that we have Ben to our left in the small blind, who I think is a fairly competent player. And I'm not sure about the big blind. I don't remember seeing too many hands from him in this session, so I don't really know about him. The tougher your opponents are in the blinds, the more you're likely to just play a little bit tighter in this spot and fold a hand that doesn't play as well post-flop. But as such, I think coming in for a raise makes sense, which Paul does, and it looks like he raises to $21. Again, I think we've seen some different sizings from Paul throughout this session. So again, something that we just want to consider and what types of hands he's going to be raising bigger or from different positions, and if there's anything to glean from that. Action folds to Ben here in the small blind, who's our opponent. His can will be covered up, and he puts in a 3-bet. So I would assume that Ben is going to be pretty aggressively 3-betting this spot against what I would think that he would want to knock the big blind a lot. First of all, in general, small blind play is going to be mostly against button is going to be mostly 3-bet or fold. When you play live, that's a little bit different, but I think most good aggressive players are going to come in for a 3-bet from the small blind with the hands that they want to continue with. And especially in this situation where you can just get it heads up. Now, it was hard to note there. It went by really quickly to see whether or not there was a third blind out there or not, and that does play a big factor in it. If there's a third blind out there, or like a straddle, then it makes a lot of sense for Ben to be 3-betting here with a lot of hands. There's even more extra money out there. So action folds. So it's a 3-bet to $85 over the $21 open. And it looks like we are about $1,000 effective here if the graphics are right. So when it gets back to Paul here, we have a few options. I think the most common option is going to be to just fold. Our hand, although we have an ace, our hand is very, very poor hand to call a 3-bet with because it performs very poorly. There's not a lot of maneuverability. There's not a lot of things that you can do post-flop with it. It's often dominated, obviously, by the opponent's 3-betting range. And when you do improve to a hand, like if you do hit a pair of aces, it's often hard to get value from your hand and or know if you're good if your opponent puts a lot of pressure on you. So I think folding is the option that makes the most sense and is what you should probably be doing most of the time. Now, it does make an okay candidate for a 4-bet bluff here, especially with the stack sizes that we have and what I would think Paul's image is based on the way that he's played so far. I think it makes sense to put in a 4-bet here if he wants to continue with the hand to something like $250. That puts a lot of pressure on Ben's range and on his stack. He's got a $1,000 stack, so we make a 4-bet up to $250 here. We have an ace blocker, which is going to block a lot of the really strong hands that Ben can have. And additionally, if we do think that Ben is aggressively 3-betting this spot, something like 15 to 20% of the time, then there's going to be a lot of hands in there that just fold. If he's taking a hand like King Queen or King Jack or King 10 and 3-betting the offsuit combinations of those are probably going to be hands that fold. He might call a 4-bet with some suited type hands, but that's, again, something that happens a lot more often online. And against Paul's player type, I think Ben might just find a fold with those hands pre-flop. So I think if we're going to continue, I like a 4-bet. The least option is to call, which Paul does decide to do, and we're going to take a flop. So the flop comes down ace, jack, 7, rainbow, which obviously hits top pair for us, but it's, again, going to be a spot where we're not going to be in love with our hand. And I'm going to have to pause this right now. I'll be right back. Okay, well, I had to knock on the door there in the middle of this. So as I was saying, we flop top pair, but it's not a flop that we can be in love with. Obviously, having top pair is a good thing, but if we face a lot of aggression, it's not going to be a good thing. And so Ben starts out with a bet. Looks like he sizes to, looks like he makes it $75. So a slight down bet, 3-bet to $85 pre-flop, and then a flop C bet of $75, which is appropriate for most of his hands in this situation. So, we think he's going to have a pretty wide range when he 3-bets in this spot. He's going to want to obviously start building a pot with his strong hands like ace king, ace queen, ace jack, pocket jacks, pocket aces, and hands like that. And then he can fit in some bluffs there with hands like king, queen. Are you kidding me? This one? With hands like king, queen, king 10. I should, this is really hard to do, obviously. King, queen, king 10, queen 10, 8-9 suited, 10-9 suited. There's a bunch of good bluff candidates for him to have here. And choosing this small sizing gives him a good price on his bluffs, as well as allows him to start to build a pot with his strong hands. So actions on us, I don't think there's anything we can do other than to call and then take the turn. I don't think any other option is really on the table here. We have top pair with weak kicker. Would be way too weak to just fold right now to one small bet here. So Paul decides to go ahead and make the call, and we'll take the turn. Now, the current turn card is the deuce of diamonds, which obviously doesn't improve our hand any. Shouldn't really improve the small blind's hand any at all either. If he's 3-betting hands like ace deuce suited, I think a lot of times those hands end up checking this flop a fair amount. He could consider just betting very small with all his range, but by checking with his wheel aces, that allows him to also check hands like pocket 10s and pocket queens and be protected somewhat. So it shouldn't improve either of us that often. Obviously, we'll have some ace deuce suited. We can only really have ace deuce of clubs, ace deuce of hearts in theory, but considering we flatted the 3-bet with ace 3 off, I guess we also have the combinations of ace deuce off as well. So Ben decides to, we got to let this catch up here while we do this. So if Ben continues betting here, we're going to be in a pretty tough spot because, he's going to have some bluffs here. He's going to have a fair amount of hands that are just going to continue to barrel, like 10-9 suited, 8-9 suited, king, queen, king 10, queen 10, and especially if he turns some diamond draws, those are going to be really incentivized to continue bluffing because they have all the strong hands as well. Obviously, with his strong hands, he's going to want to keep betting as well. Hands like ace king, ace queen, ace jack, pocket jacks, like we mentioned earlier on the flop, those are going to want to continue betting to build a pot. So Ben does decide on a bet here, and he makes it $270. So very sizable bet here. This is a very common situation you'll see from very tough players that comes up very often. So this is what you have to be prepared for if you're going to be in games with good players. Very common to see a 3-bet pot, a player 3-bets from the small blind, down bets flop, and then it's going to apply a lot of pressure on the turn here with a big bet. And the reasons for that obviously are that with your bluffs, you want to get the most fold equity, and when you have strong hands, you want to build the pot the most. And this board is going to be pretty favorable to the pre-flop 3-better. He's going to have a lot of really good hands here, and now we are obviously in just a really tough spot here with ace 3 offsuit, and I think we just have to fold. Now, there's obviously a lot of better aces that we can continue. We can also continue with hands like ace deuce suited, ace 7, ace jack, pocket jacks, pocket 7s. So those are the hands that we're going to be continuing with. We should be slow playing all those on the flop. We really shouldn't have a flop raising range here. So those are the hands that we continue with. And then obviously hands like ace king if we didn't 4-bet, ace queen, ace 10. Those are obviously going to make better hands to have than ace 3. The benefit of the benefit of having a 3 in your hand in this spot, if there is any benefit, is that we don't block our opponent's bluffing combinations. So we don't block the king, queen, 10, 9. But that's still just, our hand's probably just too weak to continue. And unfortunately, Paul is going to let it go here. And this is just kind of a look at, what the type of situations that you might get into when you make a poor pre-flop decision. And I think calling pre-flop here with ace 3 offsuit is definitely a losing play. And I think that, but it's common too. This happens a lot in live poker where, you open a hand on the button and then you think somebody might be a little weak in the small blind, they 3-bet you, and then you just end up hitting the call button. And so I think that's something that you can learn from this. You can realize that, first of all, calling is not a good play in this spot. And I think it's a very common, like I said, common live leak for people to call 3-bets too wide in these spots. I much prefer, if you're going to call 3-bet wide here, you're better off doing it with some sort of suited connector or a hand that has a little bit better playability than a hand like ace-3 offsuit. So Paul does let it go, and we'll show Ben's hand here. Ben had the king-queen offsuit, so Ben was actually bluffing the spot. Well-played hand by Ben here to 3-bet, and then his sizing is really good in this spot to put maximum pressure on his opponent's range and get the fold. So again, this is another spot, like I said, it's not like a crazy, sexy, off-the-wall spot. It's just a very common spot that'll come up. These spots happen far more often online than in live games because there aren't as many heads-up situations or just blind versus button. Those hands happen all the time online, and something I'm very comfortable with. But I think if you want to get better at some live poker and dealing with some tough players, like a player like Ben here, then you can learn a lot from what we talked about in this video. Maybe, hopefully, I didn't miss out on too much, and hopefully you guys got some information out of this. If you did enjoy it, please hit the like button. If you're not already subscribed, please do that. That's the last one of this series. If you want to get back to those regular videos on this channel, we're going to do some play every hand video next week, I think. I'm going to head down somewhere and go ahead and play every hand, get some more entertainment value while doing some analysis as well. I look forward to hearing your feedback, and I will talk to you guys next time. See ya.